we expect our officers to do well. We expect them to exercise good judgment, but we also are responsible for providing them the tools to exercise good judgment. And as we reviewed this, we found a place in our K-9 general order that, quite frankly, needs some tightening up, and that's on me. So we will be doing a complete review of that policy to make sure that we are using our dogs appropriately and in the right circumstances. So that's, basically at this point what we found through the investigation.
And what is that policy on the use of canines?
We can get you a copy of it. You want a copy of it?
I would like for him to say it, if we can, or explain.
Well, the policy is fairly extensive. Generally, the use of the dog has to do with dealing with felony suspects. It has to do with doing building searches, tracks, protection of officers. So it's a fairly expansive policy because the dogs do so many different things.
Sure. What is it that you determined did happen on the 25th?
I'm not going to comment on the mechanics of this. You have to realize that this case, the charges against Ms. Goldman still stand. It has to go to trial. So to say anything about something that's got to go to trial would be inappropriate at this point.
I want to be clear, though, that I understand, of course. So you have reached, at this point in the investigation, you determined that the use of force was unreasonable. However, the charges are not.
That is correct. The charges stand. This is not about the arrest. This is about the use of force during the arrest.
I see. Okay. Were there body cameras on the officers that were present?
No. We have not deployed those yet.
How many officers in all were there that night?
There were a number of officers there. I don't have an exact number. That is something that we are still looking at with the investigation. But there were more than one. I can tell you there were multiple involved.
I see. How many police canines were there?
Just one.
Okay. One of the things that you said in the release yesterday was that there were at least 35 people involved in a fight in the street, which was what caused the 911 call. How have you determined that number?
That was a number that was pulled from the 911 caller. That was not a number that we came up with. That was what was reported to us, I believe, in the 911 call.
I see. Okay. Were there any other arrests that night related to this incident?
None that I'm aware of.
I see. Okay. When you talk about the policy, the use of force, when this issue came across your desk, how big of an issue was it to you at that time when you first learned of it?
Any use of force that this department does is a big issue. One of the things that police departments have to always be cognizant of is when we have to use force to effect an arrest. It's serious business when we have to do that. So whether it's a canine, whether it's pepper spray, whether it's the use of a police baton, a taser, we take that very seriously. So when we see these things, we want to make sure we vet them very carefully to make sure the use of force was appropriate.
One of the things you said when you first started with us today is that this is your fault. Why so?
It's my job to ensure the outcomes of this police department, and it's my job to provide the officers of this police department the appropriate tools to make good judgments in reference to these things. We have a policy that failed them. We have a policy that did not provide the appropriate guidance in reference to these matters. It's up to me to fix that. So it's my job to take care of that and make sure we provide these officers the best tools possible so they can exercise the best judgment possible. Make no mistake, I expect my officers to exercise good judgment all the time. Most of the time they get it right. Sometimes we make mistakes. We're human beings. So it's up to me to make sure that we put everything in place that we can that will ensure good judgments by our officers, and that's my job to do.
And lastly, because I'm being told this will be my last question, you said you'll make this right. Let's talk about, first of all, how long it will be before we can get more details on the updated policy and what you mean specifically by that.
Yeah, I don't have an exact timeline for that, Brandi, but we are working right now, and we have been working since January 25th to get the totality of what happened and to examine our policy. We already have people working on that to get it revised, and just as soon as I get that policy revised, we'll make it available to you.
Anything you want to say to Ms. Goldman and her family tonight?
We are looking at all of this, and we take it very seriously. It's not something that we're taking lightly. We understand what's happened, and we are going to do the best that we can to make sure that this is fully explored.
Okay. Thank you
Give
very
us a support.
much.
Just get a shot of you guys talking.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate you
No, not a
taking
problem
time
at
to
all.
do this for us today.
That's no issue.
Sure. And we did request the 911 calls. Will those be released, or can they be?
I believe
They're
that's,
processing, it's part of the criminal investigation.
yeah, that's, right now, because we still have criminal charges, some of these things are going to be part of the criminal folder.
Sure. Okay.
So,